from Jimmy Kimmel Live, Jimmy Kimmel. Let's go!
Hey now, what's happening?
How are you doing?
Good. You look very handsome, and I look like a bum.
No, it's okay.
How's
You
it
look
going?
awesome. I'm doing very well, and you?
Everything's good. I'm glad to talk to you. I'm wearing. I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm wearing your
Yeah,
sweatshirt that
I
you
know,
sent
I
me.
know. I love it. That looks awesome.
Nice. Thanks for sending it.
You're welcome. I mean, it's the least we could do with you accepting this, podcast. So before we start, I just want to ask, so thank you so much for joining my podcast. And how's your son Billy doing?
He's doing great. He's 3 years old. He'll be 4 in April. I dropped him off at preschool this morning. He's a funny kid. He loves Spider-Man. He likes to run around in his underpants, and he loves dinosaurs. He loves T-Rexes and pterodactyls, especially.
That's awesome. So how old did you say he was again?
He's 3. He'll be 4 in April.
Wow, that's awesome. So with all my guests, I like to see what they were doing at around my age. So what were you doing at my age? What was it like growing up in Vegas, and what kind of student and athlete were you?
Well, you're 11 years old?
Yes, I'm 11 years old.
When I was 11, I was in the 6th grade. Actually, this is a real good year for me, 6th grade. It may have been my best year. I was in the 6th grade. I was a decent athlete, a very good student, better student than athlete. I made a movie. Actually, I had a really great class when I was in 6th grade, and we had this video camera, and you'd laugh if you saw it because it wasn't like now where everything's on like a little phone. You get this great video. It was like a big giant setup, and we had it in this class I was in. And the class was called AT. It was academically talented. And we got to do anything we want each semester. So we had to pick a project and do whatever we want. And I made a movie, a superhero movie, starring myself as this character, Muscle Man, which was a superhero I drew when I was a kid. He had a crown and he wore a yellow outfit, and he had a big yellow cape, and then he had muscles on his chest. I was this, like 85-pound kid playing Muscle Man, and we made a movie. Sadly, I have no record of that movie. They didn't let me keep the tapes because they'd use them over and over again. But boy, I'd give almost anything to see that.
So you said that you liked drawing superheroes. Were you were you a very good artist? Like, were you actually focusing on drawing for a couple of years?
Yes, I wanted to be an artist when I was a kid. That was always my dream, my goal. It was to be an artist. I kind of fell into doing what I'm doing now.
Nice. So you like you said, you wanted to be an artist when you grew up. So, but most kids when they're younger, they would like to become a professional athlete or a movie star. Did you always want to be like an entertainer where you are now, or did you have other aspirations?
Well, I didn't really have aspirations, weirdly. I just like to make people laugh in class. I would make jokes, and I got a kick out of it when the other students would laugh. And if the teacher laughed, that would be great. Sometimes the teachers got mad. Most of the time, the teachers got mad. And that was kind of fun too. Not as much fun, but also fun. And I really didn't have like a big plan for my life. I didn't know about movies or TV. I didn't know anybody who did anything like that. It's not like my family, anyone in my family had ever done anything in that area. So it really was an accident that I fell into it. It just so happened that I started doing a radio show in high school on the college radio station, and I liked it, and I decided maybe I wanted to be a disc jockey, and I became a disc jockey, and then one thing led to another, and I wound up hosting a game show and doing football picks on Fox, and here we are now on Zoom.
That's awesome. So, like you said, you were doing radio in school and all that stuff. So, what type of radio shows were you doing? Like, I know that you said that you covered sports and all that stuff, but like, what other radio shows did you do?
The first radio show I did was on Sunday nights. It was half an hour long, and I would find celebrities in Las Vegas. And when I say celebrities, these people were not celebrities at all. One of them was the hairstylist to the stars. He was a guy who allegedly cut famous people's hair, but it turned out he'd only cut one famous person's hair. And if I told you who that person was, you'd have no idea. Most people would have no idea who he was. Then I did a morning radio show for 12 years. I did it in many different cities. The show that you listen to as you drive into work, they're not as popular anymore, but at the time they were very popular when people listened to FM radio.
Nice. So at that point, when you were doing radio, at that point, did you think like, hey, this radio stuff is, pretty cool? Did you want to start like your own radio show and all that stuff? Like, was that, or?
I loved it. I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved being inside a radio station. I just like to even just sit in there. And for the first couple of years, I did it for free. I was just a volunteer, really. I just loved being on the radio. I started calling into an afternoon radio show in Las Vegas. I would call from work, and the disc jockey thought I was funny, and he'd put me on the air, and I'd do funny little bits. I'd say stupid things. And eventually, I wound up doing that for a living.
So it sounds like you're a sports fan. As Jimmy the Sports Guy in LA, you have covered sports in the past. What was it like hosting the ESPY Awards?
It was fun. I did it with LeBron James. LeBron James and I hosted the show together. And so before the show, I went to Akron, Ohio, where he lived at the time. And I spent a couple of days at his house. We were working on shooting some promos and writing some material and figuring out what we were going to do. So I got to know LeBron, and LeBron's son, who is now getting close to being an NBA star himself. He was just a little kid. I think he was like 4 years old, and I was playing Nerf basketball with him for about an hour in the living room. And I remember thinking, by the time this kid hits 6, he'll be able to beat me.
So as someone who grew up in Las Vegas, what do you think it meant to the people in Vegas to finally get a professional sports team with the Golden Knights and then the Raiders?
Oh, it was fun. Boy, the story of the Golden Knights really captured everyone's imagination. I don't think Vegas wasn't necessarily a hockey town in any way, but it became a hockey town immediately. The Raiders, that's a little bit different right now because their first season, they weren't able to have fans. So I think that we're going to need some time to embrace the Raiders. But we always, we loved college basketball, and the Runnin' Rebels were the big team when I was a kid, and they won the national championship, and they had some really great players, some of whom went on to be great players in the NBA. That was like our professional sports team. They were an amateur college team, but they might as well have been a professional team.
So so it's so difficult to make it into show business and get a big break. Was there ever a point in your career where you were just ready to give up on your dream? And was there one pivotal event or decision that led you to where you are today?
Well, first of all, like for somebody like me, I don't feel like there ever was a big break. There were a lot of little breaks. And when you get a little break, you have to be ready for it. And when I say you have to be ready for it, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do a television show if I hadn't done radio before it. And I don't know that I would have been welcomed on the radio if I hadn't been writing little comedy bits and making crank phone calls when I was a kid. So all of this stuff builds. And as far as my dreams, I never had like a big dream. I never dreamed of being a talk show host on television. In fact, I would have been thrilled to be like a writer on a talk show on television. I didn't have a big dream. And I think like I was pretty excited, even when I was a disc jockey in a small market like Tucson, Arizona. I was really excited to be there. And I felt like at that time I had realized my dreams. So for me, anything above that was what we call gravy. It was just like extra satisfaction and fun on top of what I really just wanted to do, was be a local morning DJ.
That is awesome. I read that you were more interested in radio than television. what made you decide to join Win Ben Stein's Money and then the Man Show on the Comedy Network?
Well, it's funny because when you're a disc jockey, people listen to you and they either like you or they don't. Maybe they listen to you regularly. And if you're in a town like Phoenix or like Las Vegas or Tucson or Palm Springs or Tampa, these other places that I worked at, no one who works in television is listening to you because they're not making TV shows there. But when I was on in LA, a lot of the people driving into work in the morning were TV producers. So then I would get calls from people saying, hey, will you come audition for our TV show? And I'd be like, yeah, okay, I guess so. It wasn't even really like I set out to do it. It just so happened they'd listen to me and think like, oh, this guy might be funny. And for the most part, I never got any of those auditions. I'd audition for whatever, like an acting role or something, which is something that I never had much interest in doing. But somebody calls you and asks you to audition, and you go, and then they'd say, oh yeah, no, this guy's not an actor. He's not going to be any good. But it so happened that a guy was listening to the show, and he was a game show producer who I knew a little bit. And he asked me to audition for a show. And I said, nah, that doesn't sound that good. So I said no. And then because my time was valuable. And then he asked me to audition for another show. And I said, no, that doesn't sound good either. And he started getting frustrated. And then he had this idea for a show called Win Ben Stein's Money. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. And so I went into this office. It wasn't like a big TV set. It was just an office with some folding chairs set up. And I ran through the game. They call it running through, and you just do a rehearsal of the game with this guy named Ben Stein, who was a really smart guy. And we knew right away that it was good and that it worked. And I said, yeah, this is something that I might want to spend my time on. And that was, if we're looking for a big break, that was one of my big breaks, I guess.
Wow. So like did you like Win Ben Stein's Money? Like did you enjoy
Yeah,
yeah,
it
you
was
did?
fun. I was tired because I did a morning radio show from 5:30 a.m. to
Yeah.
10 a.m. And then I get in my car and drive to the studio and shoot Win Ben Stein's Money all day until like 7:30 p.m. So, and then I have to do it again the next day and the next day. So I was very tired. And I once fell asleep driving home, and a policeman pulled up next to me at the stoplight and said, are you awake enough to operate that vehicle? And I was like, I am now. But it was worth it.
That's awesome. So you won Best Film for Windy City Heat at the Montreal Comedy Festival, where I was actually born. I was born in Montreal. So
Not one of, if not my favorite city, Montreal.
at that point, were you considering making a career in movies?
No, that's a movie that I wrote and produced, and I'm in it a little bit, but I'm just really playing myself. I've written a couple of movies, and I've not had a lot of success in that area. And I think when you host a talk show, people don't think of you as a movie star. So I don't know that I don't think I'll probably never be in movies other than playing like the voice of a dog. Or I was in Boss Baby. I played the dad in Boss Baby, and I'm in the next Boss Baby movie too. So most of the people who put me in movies don't want to see my face.
So you created Jimmy Kimmel Live in 2003. At that time, there are some very popular shows like Jay Leno, Conan O'Brien, and David Letterman. What was it that made you think that you could compete with those shows, and how was your show going to be different than those?
Well, nothing really made me think I could compete with them. In fact, I thought I probably couldn't. But ABC was dumb enough to offer me the job, and so I felt like I had to take it and I had to give it a try. It's one of these things like you're a sports fan. Like if somebody told you, listen, here's what we're going to do. It's the eighth inning. We're going to pull you out of the stands, and we need you to pinch hit. Now you could go like, well, I'm only 11 years old. I'm probably going to strike out. But then another part of you goes, but I might get a hit. Who knows what might happen? And they'll pay me for the day. So I should probably give this a shot. And that's kind of how I went into it. I didn't have hugely high hopes. I knew that I would work hard. I knew that I would try to make the show as different as I could while still doing a late night talk show that people are familiar with. And you try things, you try to make them different, and ultimately, like you're doing a podcast right now, and a lot of people
Yeah,
do podcasts, and you're sitting there in a chair talking to a microphone, which is the same as a lot of people. But you're 11, you have a particular, your brain is only your brain, and the things that come out of it are things that would only come from you. So I just kind of tried to look at it like that. Like, everyone lives in a house, and every house has a kitchen and bathrooms and a shower, hopefully. But you just try to make it personal. You put up pictures of your family and
yeah,
your own little statues on the shelf, and that's, you don't have to totally reinvent things to make them unique.
that's awesome. That's great. So your wife Molly is writes for the show. Your brother Jonathan is a director for the show, and your son Kevin is a production assistant. How special is it to work together with family on such a successful show?
Well, I'll add that my cousin Sal and my cousin Mickey work on the show.
Oh, really?
My and weirdly, this is a funny story. There's this guy named Mike Chaffee who works on our show, and I didn't know him when we hired him. He was a kind of expert with social media and the internet and this kind of stuff. And it so happens that my grandmother's last name was Chaffee. And I said, gee, Mike, I wonder if we're related. And so we kind of asked members of our family, we asked them, and no, there was no connection. Well, we did one of those DNA tests, the ancestry.com, and it turns out we just found out that we are cousins. So even when I don't hire cousins, I wind up with cousins on the show. And it's great because the show takes a lot of time, especially when we started the first few years. We would tape, well, actually we were on live. Our show was at 9:05 p.m. So I'd get there in the morning, and the show wouldn't even be done until after 10 o'clock p.m. So I was there all day. My older kids, I had bunk beds for them in my dressing room. So they would, after school, they'd come there and hang out in my dressing room with me while I was working on the show, which is not necessarily ideal, but it was all I could do because we still had to do a show every day. So it was a kind of the best possible solution to have family there. And also my family, my Uncle Frank was on the show. My Aunt Chippy is on the show. I feel like my family's funny. And so, if I'm looking for funny people to be on the show, the first place I look is at the dinner table on Thanksgiving.
Speaking of which, I also understand that your sister Jill is a comedian. I cannot imagine what it was like sitting at the Kimmel table for dinner with all those personalities. How was it during dinner? Because me and my sister, like, we, tell jokes at the dinner table. We have fun at the dinner table. So I just couldn't imagine what it was like at your guys' table.
Well, it's funny because we have a lot of funny people in my family. My grandfather was like the guy who started it all. I mean, I imagine probably his parents were funny too, but I never met them. And my grandfather was a really funny and creative guy. He was an artist. He just always did funny things. Like once he went to a wedding where he didn't know anybody, wearing a blonde woman's wig. And this old man just walking around a wedding in a wig, and people didn't know what was going on. And he just got a kick out of it. They thought he was crazy, which he kind of was crazy, but not in the way they thought he was. We have a lot of fun. When I was a kid, and this is something that you should do, I would record my family at the dinner table. At the time, I just had an audio recorder, so I'd just get their voices. And even to this day, I go back and listen to it, everyone talking and everyone yelling and just, saying funny things. And it's great to be able to listen to that, to hear people who didn't know they were being recorded because they're very natural. And that is, when you have a funny family, usually you wind up funny. And really, my brother, my sister, my cousins, like they're all funny.
So I'm guessing so are your cousins, so I understand that like you have some cousins on your show. So are they like do they have a funny piece of humor? Like are they
Yeah, my
some
cousin Sal is probably the funniest person I know. Cousin Sal he remembers everything. He is a prankster. okay, you're going to think this is a weird story, but one day my wife, she was, before she was head writer on the show, she was an assistant on the show. This is before she was even a writer. And she started making a little bit of money as an assistant, and she bought a lamp for her desk at the show. And she put this lamp, she bought it like Crate and Barrel across the street. She put the lamp on the desk, and Sal walks by. Sal's throwing a football, and he smashes the lamp,
Oh.
and he feels bad. He's throwing it. So he pays for it. He says, I'll get you a new lamp. He gives her the money. She throws the lamp out. She goes across the street. She buys a new lamp. Same lamp. She puts it on her desk. She plugs it in. Sal walks in the room. He picks up the lamp and he smashes it on the ground. And he throws another $150 on the desk. He does weird things.
Why would he do that?
Well, nobody really knows, but everyone laughed. Even my wife thought it was funny.
So I get excited before every interview I do. Every interview is like different, like every like person that you have on the show is different. Do you still feel excited before each interview, and how do you prepare for that interview?
Honestly, no, I don't feel excited before every interview because I've done so many of these interviews. And at the beginning, I was nervous when I did an interview, especially if it was with a big star, because I was worried I might say something stupid. and oftentimes I did. And now I do it a lot. And there are certain people that I love talking to. Like I had Steve Harvey on the show last night, and he's great because I know he's going to be funny. Sometimes I get a little nervous because if somebody's shy or quiet or timid, or maybe they don't necessarily want to be there, I want them to do well, but I don't want to like take over the interview myself. So sometimes you feel like you're on a high wire, and you have like 7 minutes to do an interview, and you want the guest to come off well. You want everybody to be happy afterwards. And most of the time it works out like that. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's boring or whatever. But the good part of that is there's always another guest the next day and another guest after that.
Yeah.
So it's good when an interview is great and funny, you're happy. But the minute it's done, it's over, and you're right on to the next one. And same deal with a bad one. If it's boring or it doesn't go the way you wanted it to go, you just focus right on to the next one.
Yeah, like every interview should be entertaining, and it should be funny. You want people to be entertained, and so it's you need to catch people's eyes and get their attention, and you want to stick out to. Like,
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's what you did with your show. Like, with all those other shows in 2003, you were entertained. You caught people's attention. So, that you need to be funny. And
Well, I try. Sometimes I try a little too hard, and then sometimes I don't try hard enough, but I always try.
so this question comes from my mom. She's actually right here. Do you want to come?
Okay.
You want to come? Okay, here she is. So, Mom, do you want to ask the question? Okay. So, well, here she is right here.
Hi, see, you have relatives working on your show too.
So her question is, this question is from my mom. She wants to know how you could predict the winner of the Bachelor and Bachelorette yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people ask me that.
Like, she watches your show a lot, and she always makes sure that she tunes into the episode that you predict the winner, because she wants to know what the winner is.
Well, the truth is my wife does that. She is the one who makes that prediction. And people think we must have some inside information. We have no inside information. And sometimes my wife picks the winner just by looking at a group picture of all the contestants. She'll be like, I think it's going to be her. And it's funny. She's really good at it. I wish we could bet on it or something, because I think we would make a lot of money. But unfortunately, you can't gamble on this stuff. But it really is amazing. This year she's picked Rachel, and sure enough, final three. Who's in the final three? Rachel. Wow. And maybe she'll win. We'll see. But it's all my wife's doing.
That's pretty cool. So I have wanted to be a famous actor ever since I could remember, a Hollywood actor ever since I could remember.
Okay.
So is it difficult to have a normal lifestyle with your family as a celebrity? And are most of your friends in the entertainment industry?
No, most of my friends are not in the entertainment industry. I still have a lot of friends from high school and even elementary school. I do have a lot of friends in the entertainment industry because, when you do these interviews, you meet people. It's almost like there's something called speed dating where you go on a date with somebody for 5 minutes. You just sit there and you talk, and then you move on to the next person, and then you move on to the next person. It's kind of like that. You meet people and you go like, oh, I like, this seems like a nice guy. I think, maybe we should go out to dinner or something like that. As far as being an actor, there are a lot of different jobs in Hollywood. My job, one of the good things about my job is I get to be home all week because I actually live a couple miles from my show. So I drive in the morning and then I drive home at around 6 o'clock, just like a regular job, which is nice for me because I have two little kids and I can maintain a normal life. One of the things about being an actor is oftentimes you have to fly off to another country for 3 months or 6 months, or it's very rare that you get to shoot something in the place that you live. So if you have a family, it makes it hard. And if you're in a relationship with somebody else who's an actor, you may not see each other for most of the year. So that is hard, and there's a lot of pressure, and it's very competitive. But you know what? If you really want to do it, there's no way to talk you out of it if you really, really want to do it. And I found that the people that seem to do well are the people who kept going when they were defeated, when they felt like it wasn't gonna happen for them. And you just have to keep going. Maybe it won't ever work out, but there's something sad about giving up. And if you do give up, you probably didn't want to do it as much as other people did in the first place.
And like you said, it's hard to leave your family on every single day for your job, right? But
Yeah.
at least like your family, like I said a couple of questions ago, you're very lucky to have your family working on the show with you.
Yeah, if you're an actor, that's a lot harder to do, to get your own family. You don't want to be in a love scene with your mom.
So it's okay. So I have a rare condition called truncocitosis. It's a rare heart deform with my heart. And Chio, they're very good. Shout out to Chio. They're like amazing. They're an amazing hospital. They've done so much work on me. And
yeah,
then,
tell me about what you're doing. I'm curious.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so like you've seen on my mom and what you're wearing and my dad's wearing it as well. I saw some there it is. I saw some merchandise on my website zandersitsonly.com, and all the proceeds, so you could purchase anything, and like the t-shirt, the sweater,
Let me model it while you talk about it.
Yes,
I'll do some modeling
please.
poses
Yes,
for you.
that would be amazing. Awesome. So you could order it, and all the proceeds go to Chio. So so there's also a little Chio bear at the bottom left corner. So you could click the Chio bear, and that brings you straight directly to the Chio Foundation website, where you could donate. You just press donate now at the top right. And so yeah, it's the least I could do because I can't do much as a kid, but it's the least I can do as a...
Most kids don't do anything. I did nothing good when I was 11 years old. And that fact that you're doing this is so great, and it's remarkable. And I hope that my son Billy does something. I mean, right now, all he does is like he pulls the plug out of the TV while we're trying to watch. That's but I think this is great that you're doing this and helping other kids. I mean, there's nothing better than that.
So I went to the Oscars. So Chio granted my wish to go to Hollywood because of my heart defect. And so I went in 2017, and I went to the Oscar venue like the day after you hosted.
Wow.
So yeah, do you remember taking this photo with me?
That's right. That's when I was a giant.
Yeah, it's right here, right here. Boom.
Wow, look at that. There we are.
It
Wow,
is.
you've really grown up in a few years. We both
It is.
have. Yeah, that's
So
cool.
I want to ask, how heavy are the trophies?
They're pretty heavy. You know, there's a guy that carries them around. There's a guy whose job is to like bring them to things like that picture you saw of me. They had an Oscar, and you know, it doesn't belong to anybody; it belongs to the Academy. And I kept pretending to drop it every single time he handed it to me, which was making him very nervous. He wears gloves and he polishes it every single time. But I guess it probably weighs around 5 or 6 pounds, which doesn't sound that heavy, but it's heavy when you're holding it.
So here's a little follow-up question. Do actors ever like go like, whoa, like are they surprised with the weight? Like do they?
You know, it's funny. Some of the actresses are very thin, and then you can see when they're holding it up, you can see their muscles bulging as you know when they're trying to hold it with one hand, because it is kind of heavy. But as far as I know, nobody has dropped it. Hold on, let me show you something. All right, I'm going to run and I'll be right back. Hold on.
Okay.
All right.
Whoa.
Put my headphones back on. I want to show you something. So I won a few Emmys, right?
Yes.
And one of the Emmys I won was for that game show, Win Ben Stein's Money, that we were talking about. And I'm going to show you the Emmy statuette. There's a statue, but I'm also going to show you that it's broken because my son Billy picked it up and threw it to the ground.
No. Oh no.
Yeah, so that's what he's up to. Yeah.
So like I was saying about the Oscar venue thing, when you're standing up there in front of like all those famous actors and millions of people watching at home, do you ever get starstruck?
No, not at that moment. No. Sometimes it does happen where I feel like, wow, I can't believe I'm here with somebody like Steve Martin or Martin Short. These guys that I loved so much when I was a kid, and you know, you get excited to meet them, but it doesn't take it. You get over it pretty quickly, and then you realize like, oh, this is just another person. And it's funny because they feel the same way about some of the people that they're sitting next to. You know, you may sit there and go like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, is sitting there. And then he's sitting there going, I can't believe I'm sitting next to Meryl Streep. And she's going, I can't believe I'm sitting next to Oprah. You know, so everybody has that same feeling. We think of people who are famous as if they've been famous for their whole lives. And there are a couple of them that have been, for the most part. You know, they're people who were working regular jobs and who had regular lives and eventually wound up doing something that a lot of different people see. So, but I think that there's always an element of excitement. For me, athletes always excite me, especially like the players that I liked when I was a kid. That's fun to talk to them and find out and hear the stories of the things that were going on that you didn't know about when they were playing. I love that. And even just like being around somebody like Shaquille O'Neal. Once Shaq and I were doing we were doing some comedy bit together across the street from my show, and we had to drive over to this hotel to do it. And I said, you want to ride with me? I had my car there. I had an SUV. And Shaq said, yeah, I'll ride over with you. So he gets in my car, he gets in the back seat. I'm like, Shaq, run, get in the front. You know, he's like, I'm too tall for the front seat. He had to sit across the back seat of my car.
Really?
Even though I had a pretty big car. Yeah, he couldn't, he
Wow.
wasn't able to fit in it. It was more comfortable for him to sit sideways.
So I know we went a little over time, but do you have some time for rapid fire questions?
I do.
Okay.
Hit me with them.
Awesome. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Aside from Matt Damon, who I would honestly think that would be a great follow-up guest, who has been your greatest inspiration?
David Letterman.
And by the way, I don't care what Matt says. You're a really great guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. He's an absolute monster.
What is your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time, probably. Oh, there's a movie called The One and Only, which you've never seen and almost no one has ever seen, but that's the one I've probably seen the most times.
Nice. What is your favorite city in the world to travel to?
Montreal, Canada. It really
Nice.
is. I love it there.
Is there if they made a movie about Jimmy Kimmel, who should get the lead role?
Wow. Well, obviously someone very handsome. Probably Timothy Chalamet. I think we look. Oh yes, Zander. Yeah, you could play the young Jimmy Kimmel.
The
I was
young Jimmy
thinking,
Kimmel. Yes, that's what my dad said. Let's go.
yeah, you might be too handsome for that though. I was a mess. My hair was like I looked like a piece of broccoli
I
when
did
I was
before
your
this
age.
interview, so I mean,
Okay.
what is your favorite thing to do when you have some quiet time at home?
I like to draw. I still love drawing, but I don't have much quiet time. It's very loud in my house.
What is your favorite? Sorry. Who is your favorite sports team?
My favorite sports team all time, probably that's a tough one. It's between the Lakers and the UNLV Running Rebels and the Mets and the LA Kings. I'm going to say it's probably the UNLV Running Rebels.
Nice. Let's see here. What do you believe is your greatest achievement?
My greatest achievement is, I guess I should say my children, but I think almost anyone can have children. I mean, it's really common. Like you see them all the time. Sometimes you see them on the street and in schoolyards. My greatest achievement is probably having a job that I enjoy doing.
Nice. So you play the bass clarinet. If you did
Yeah.
not if you did not get into television, what would you have would you have been a musician or something else?
No, I'm not that great at playing the clarinet. I'm okay at it. I'm certainly not at a level where I could be a professional musician. I would definitely be an artist if I wasn't doing this.
What is your favorite Jimmy Kimmel live segment?
My favorite is, you ever see the movie Back to the Future?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You should look this up on YouTube because there was a day in the movie, they talked about a day when they re-entered the world, right? And it was a particular date. It was it was October. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the actual date now, like 21st or something like that.
25th.
25th. Oh, very good. Wow, you really do know. Okay, so look this up on YouTube. Look up Jimmy Kimmel Live Back to the Future, and you will see what happened on my stage. The DeLorean comes out of the smoke, and Marty McFly comes out, and Doc Brown, and Huey Lewis is there. And the audience, we actually had to edit the show because the audience was screaming so loudly and for such a long time. It was like we're going to actually not be able to do the segment. So we had to
Really?
cut like 3 minutes of screaming out of it. And that was the probably the best thing we ever did on the show.
So you know what I love
What?
is when you react to the parents pretending and teasing the kids about taking their candy.
Oh, the Halloween
The
candy.
Halloween
Yeah,
candy, yeah.
yeah. A lot of kids love that. I think because they look at it and they go, "Yeah, I know how important candy is to my mouth," and it's fun to watch these other kids screaming about it.
If you could interview someone past or present, who would it be?
Um, Past and present. Well, President Lincoln would be a fun one to interview. I think he'd be great. Present, I've interviewed almost everybody, but there's an artist named Banksy. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's mysterious. Nobody knows what he looks like. Nobody knows who he is, but he's a great artist and he does artwork mostly on the sides of buildings. And it's really good and it's oftentimes funny and meaningful. And that's somebody that I would be very interested in talking to for sure.
Nice. And so that's it. But before we wrap it up, I just want to say honestly, like, thank you for joining my podcast. Like, you're such a great guy. For you accepting my podcast request just says a lot about your personality and your person. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I hope that you and me could, me and Billy can meet in person one day.
We
And
will for sure, and you'll meet my daughter Jane. You when COVID releases its grip on us, you come out to the show and we will meet in person there, and you can watch the show. And thank you for what you're doing. I think it's great, and I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
you're welcome. Thank you for coming on my show again. Like I'm gonna be, just being so excited, like for the rest of the night.
Well,
It's
thanks,
gonna be
pal. I
amazing.
appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so
All right.
much for
Take
joining,
care.
and I hope to see you soon.
Yes.
Goodbye. See ya.
Bye.